I have a master's in history and theology, a dual master's with history and theology as the emphasis, and then I have a law degree. So I did those simultaneously. A collection of letters. Before my son was born, then I actually started taking notes about things that I wanted him to be able to do and accomplish in life. Some of those things were I wanted him to be a global citizen, and I wanted him to be able to speak multiple languages. So early on, I worked for McClendon McGraw-Hill School Publishing when I was in law school. And when my wife and I decided to have a child, rather than play nursery rhymes in his crib, we played language tapes, because I'd read some things about stimulating the brain, et cetera, et cetera. So I'd written these list of things I wanted my son to be able to accomplish. I wanted him to be a scholar. When he was 2, he walked to the mailbox with me, and he says, "Dad, where's my mail?" And at the time, there's nothing in the mailbox, as you can imagine, but student loans and a mortgage to pay, which I'm not quite sure how I'm going to pay any of this stuff. And I said, "Dude, there's nothing good in this mailbox." And he said, "Dad, but where's my mail?" And I said, "Naeem, listen, man, there's nothing." He said, "But Daddy, I want mail." I thought, well, I'll write my son such that if anything ever happens, he'll always have these cards from me. Well, what happened was I started writing him and I would mail them to him. And a couple great things happened. So the first thing that happened was that he actually got the mail he wanted to get from me. Right. Then I realized that as I was writing him these cards, on all these postcards, I didn't have enough space because I loved him so much that it just wouldn't fit in these little bitty spaces. So I said, well, I'll just write him letters. So I started to write him letters, which then allowed me to think very long and hard about what it was that I wanted to say to him. I didn't want to just write him and say, how many times can you say I love you, right? I wanted to start writing him and give him sort of instructions about how to be a man and instructions about life and ways to encourage him. And he said, "You've raised me to believe that I could do anything, to believe anything is possible. If I follow the process, that I could be successful. Dad, like there's so much more stuff for you to do. In fact, these letters that you've written me have been so helpful to me. Why don't we share them with other people?" And so my son was learning to read, and one of the ways we encouraged him to learn to read was through comic books. And one of his favorite comic book heroes was Superman. And so he couldn't pronounce super all the time. He would say Superman. And he said Superman. But he was a small child, and one of his concerns as a small child was that he was smaller than everybody else. And so being small for him suggested some limitations. And so Superman was one of his favorite. And I said, hey, well, look, let's look at him. Like, he's got some limitations too. Like, his family is dead, right? At least he has on this new planet, right? He's different from everybody else, right? So like, you're my Superman. And so it just kind of stuck, and I've just been calling him Soup ever since. So the whole terminology boy, I've never used that.
Really?
Right. I refuse to use it. I wouldn't let anyone in my house use it. I would never let anyone call my child a baby. Never. From the moment he was born, I always told everybody around that I had an MIT, which stood for Man in Training, that he was no closer to ever being a boy again, short of going back into a womb. Everything he would do from his first breath on was towards matriculation, towards manhood. And so for that reason, rather than confuse him, which is I believe we do too often with children, particularly with males, is that we say, hey, he's a boy, and then at what point does he become a man, right? At no point have I ever considered my son a boy. He's a man in training. So yes, I think we have to be cognizant of that. Black fathers in particular have to make sure that our sons stop having this ideology that we're boys, sort of this whole idea of the boys to men. No, we're not boys to men. We're man in training to man in completion. When we take an apple seed and we plant the apple seed in the ground and you have the first twig that comes up, do we call that something other than a tree? When you take a rose and you plant for a rose and the rose is yet to bloom, do we call the rose anything other than a rose bush? No, but when we have human beings, we have males, we call them boys. And then we have to wait to some mythical point in time when we determine that they're mature enough, because that maturation is dependent upon the parents or the circumstance they find themselves in. Then that's when we determine whether or not they're men. I'm like, that's just nonsense. Why don't we just say that they're men in training from day one? So everything you do is about training them to be a man, rather than training them to do nothing. Right? Because we train them to do nothing, and then we get nothing, and then we're saddened that they don't know how to do dishes, and they have babies by different people, or they don't have an education, or whatever. Well, because we had no expectations at the very beginning. My expectation at the very beginning is that you will be a man. Not only that you'll be a man, you'll be a great man. You'll be a man who understands. As I said, we've made notes. I wrote notes about things I want to do. You'll be a man who understands the world. You'll be a man who wants to make a contribution to the world. And every day, we're going to add to that. Hey, Dad's today putting on a suit. He's going to work. You're going to work with me. I got a little suit for you. Come on. Hey, I've got a business meeting with someone. I need you to come. You can bring your coloring book, but I want you to be a part of this meeting with me, right? And you start to see sort of an evolution. Hey, I'm going outside to wash the car because it needs to be clean. You ride it and I ride in it. Come on outside, we're gonna wash the car. Hey, you know what? I have bills to pay. You wanna go to private school? That's great. But you need to understand what it takes for me to do this. So come on and sit down with me and see how we balance the checkbook. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And so I always ask people, and then ask you, like, who are the 5 people you spend the most time with? And when you tell me, I can pretty much tell who you are. And if those 5 people you spend the most time with are not helping you to get to the next level, then you have to find 5 people who will. Otherwise, you'll stay as you are. I've always thought that my son needed not only me, but he needed 5 people who could be in his life to help him evolve. The point guard, hopefully, is a parent, which points the child in the right direction. The shooting guard is someone who's inspirational, that will always encourage you to shoot for the stars. The small forward is the person who makes sure you dot all the I's and cross all the T's. The power forward is the person that when everybody else is tired and the kid is not necessarily doing, the young person not doing what you hope they would do, say, hey, look, you know, there's a bigger responsibility you have here. And then there's the center, which is the center of influence, the person who knows some people who can help you all to move forward. And I believe that every child deserves to have that. And when we do that, then that's how we begin to build children who are not questioning whether or not they're a man or a woman at 18, 19, or 20. We understand that they're young men and young women at age 2 and 3 and beyond. Yeah, because I'm the one that created the life. That life is my responsibility. Everything that I do, honest to God truth, is so that my son will have more opportunities. My responsibility is to bear a child who can leave the world better than it was when he arrived. And now I understand that there's another level to go to, and now I have to go to the next level, and hopefully my son will say, man, my dad and mom did a great job, but here's some things I can improve on, and he can take his children to the next level. But everybody can do that, irrespective of our financial background or educational background. We all can do that if we decide that that life we have is important enough to give them something more than what we're currently giving them. So I'm Nathaniel A. Turner, author of Raising Supaman and the Raising Supaman Project. And a new project we're working on soon to come is called FAN, Fathers Are Necessary. And that's pretty much self-explanatory. Thanks, sir. My pleasure.